Monday, Lenox and Parker. This is your editor-in-chief, Christal Jordan. And as you all know, this week we are celebrating Juneteenth. And our digital cover, we decided to celebrate not just this young man that I'm going to be speaking to today, but just the fact that as African Americans, our influence shows up in every piece of this country. And so as we celebrate Juneteenth and we make sure that we are definitely supporting and empowering our own businesses, I think it's important to realize that we are not just supporting Black businesses, but we support business, American business, period. I think it's important for us to know that. My guest today has been one of those cultural innovators. He is one of the co-founders of the Trap Music Museum. And if you've been to Atlanta, if you live in Atlanta or you visited Atlanta, you probably have seen or heard about the Trap Music Museum. And he also has a new project titled Cultural Wireless that we're going to learn more about. But he's also been one of those voices speaking up for us in those corporate spaces like Nike, like Apple, and AT&T. Please help me welcome to today's conversation, William Bam Sparks. Welcome to Lenox and Parker.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
So, well, first of all, like I said, we are celebrating Juneteenth this week, specifically with this conversation. But do you have any specific Juneteenth plans right now? What are you looking to do to celebrate the holiday?
Well, we're doing a couple activations. We partnered with Microsoft to do a couple give backs and some skilling in certain areas, in certain neighborhoods like Clayton County. So, that's one of the things that we're planning to celebrate. We're also going to announce our public launch of our crowdfunding for Culture Wireless. So that's what we're doing for Juneteenth.
Well, let's jump right into Cultural Wireless, because when I got this information, I was like, that's really, I'm excited about it, because we know that communication is, that's something that the way we communicate and how we're able to do that affects everyone, right? But specifically our community, I think for many, many years, we have been behind the eight ball, right? In fact, how we learn to utilize the opportunities that we have with like 4G and different technology. A lot of times our communities in certain areas have a disconnect and are behind. So can you talk to us a little bit about Culture Wireless, and how this, what this means for you all to be going public?
Yeah, so this is year 4 for us. And kind of what you just described is the reason why we started Culture Wireless. Our mission is to connect everyone. It was about, I would probably say right after COVID, we realized that there was an issue in our communities. I didn't have a telco background. Some of my partners did. I was at Morris Brown, and I saw that they had a lot of connectivity in one particular area, but it wasn't, going back to our community, Vine City, the AUC, but it was going towards, Georgia Tech, Midtown, downtown. And, I saw an issue because our kids had to go to the libraries to do the homework. They didn't have any connectivity at home. So I wanted to, bridge that gap and bridge the divide. So that was how we started, and that's been our mission ever since.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about the technology and how you guys were able to do that. When you realized that there was an issue, what was like the first step of kind of creating this and to getting us to where we are today?
Well, we became an ISP, which is an internet service provider. So one of my partners and co-founders, Adjahoe, had a lot of background in building infrastructure. So he was a lead engineer in the project at Atlanta Hartsfield International Airport. So everything as far as putting in their circuits, their network, he did it alongside with his team. So we decided to just branch off and create our own company, and we started providing fiber services to certain areas. So one area in particular, we created a pilot. It's in, I don't want to call it the Bluff, but Vine City neighborhood, English Avenue. Where it's funny enough is where the Trap Music Museum was. So we ran our first circuit to the museum back to a data center, a mobile data center that we built in the community. And then we put up nodes and created almost like a infrastructure or a radius in that community where you can connect directly to our internet.
Wow. Wow. So what was the feedback? Because I live here in Atlanta. I've been here for over 20 years, so I'm very familiar with that area. Ironically, in that area, which a lot of people do refer to as the Buffer Vine City, there the Mercedes-Benz Stadium is not very far, from that. It's very close to Midtown and downtown Atlanta. So, you have these pockets of where there's not support, or there's not resources, but yet it's all part, in the heart of what people think of as Atlanta. So what was the feedback initially? Did you have to educate the community on why that was important, or was there immediate reception to what you guys were doing?
It was immediate reception, but it was also a part where we had to educate the community because most people didn't understand, and at that time, the previous administration had certain services that and subsidies that helped the community. It was a
Mhm.
affordable connectivity program. Unfortunately, after that administration left out, they killed that program. So we had to come up with other creative ways to provide services to the community.
Mhm.
We came up with some really cool ideas, some really dope partnerships, which we're also going to announce Juneteenth with another major carrier to help provide those services, because one of the issues that I saw in our community is some of the big carriers don't run fiber to the black community because
Underserved
it's
areas.
not, yeah, it's not affordable, or they think that we can't afford it
Mhm.
because it's expensive to run those fiber lines from the main connection point back through those communities. It's a
Mhm.
lot of infrastructure, which is why there were programs like the BEAD funding and things put in place by the government to provide those services to underserved communities and rural areas.
Wow. Well, like I said, I live in a rural area, and we have similar issues. But I think because most people here will be loud, out here will be loud if they're not being served. So I think a lot education is key. I want to pivot a little bit because we're talking about, you mentioned that a lot of times they may, carriers may assume that we can't afford, or those communities cannot afford to pay for connectivity. But we realize that our dollars are extremely influential in every aspect of business. I know that I just saw earlier this morning when I was, kind of preparing for this conversation, Jamal Bryant's led this boycott against Target, and there has been a huge response. Target has really felt us, if we would say that. They've definitely felt the response from that boycott. What is your thoughts on that? Because I think, with as you mentioned, also with this new administration, there are a lot of businesses that have um, discontinued programs or departments that serve minority communities. Do you feel like the answer or solution to that is to show up and remove our dollars so that they do feel us, or to do as you and your partners have done and kind of just create something that's for us and by us?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like you were saying, our black dollars are very key to the economy, and I actually spoke with Jamal Bryant's team about it,
Mhm.
just to see how they were able to get the community behind them and impact Target in that way. So I don't know if you saw, Verizon just stopped their DEI program 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I think this is an opportunity for us to be loud, to come out, Juneteenth and say, listen, I understand that a lot of you are with these other carriers. You've had plans for years. We're going to offer, similar rates, but we're also going to give back to the community. So not only can you invest in us and have ownership, because that's one thing our community lacks is ownership.
Hmm.
No one owns a piece of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, but you can
Hmm.
own a piece of our company, but also impact our community by giving back. So one of my main pitches after I left A16Z, after we got our investment, was how can we affect the community after the current administration takes away some of these benefits.
Hmm.
So I came up with this really cool concept to be able to share data amongst our community.
Mhm.
So a lot of people haven't been educated on how data works. So if you have an abundance of data and you would like to give back to a HBCU student or to someone in just an underserved community, period, we allow that our technology that we have developed allows you to give back to the community and underserved areas.
Mhm. Now, are you all working in tandem with T-Mobile on this? Because is there opportunity to partner or for another carrier to see the importance and to kind of get in on supporting so that we kind of throw our energy that way? Or is Culture Wireless looking to kind of be in that space, in an independent space, in an independent way?
Well, we are partnering with them. Maybe in the future we can pull on different carriers because I believe that this will be so successful that other people will try and copy and do what we're doing, which
Mhm.
we have no problem because at the end of the day, it solves a major issue. And like you said, it brings the black dollars back to our own community. And I think that's what truly impacts us. Even the thing with Target is great. We showed them what our culture can do, but how do we reinvest those dollars back into our community? I feel as if until we own our own infrastructure, the mission is incomplete because, yes, on one hand, they felt our impact and they're trying to resolve it. But the resolution should be okay, those millions of dollars goes back into a black version of Target. So
Mhm.
that's what we want to do. Yes, we hope we can impact, Verizon and show them that no, you shouldn't take away these programs. But how do we then take those dollars that we would spend with Verizon and spend them with Culture Wireless?
There you go. There you go. I love that. I love that. Let's talk a little bit about what you saw and what you learned, because I feel like whenever you see someone like yourself, or like definitely as an innovator and out here doing it, you probably learned a lot through your time in corporate spaces like Nike. And I think with Nike is like, I can't imagine where that company would be without the influence of African Americans and the black dollar. Not just the black dollar, but the black athlete. you know, being a big face and representation of that brand. Can you speak a little bit about what you saw and how influential our presence is with a company like Nike or even a company like AT&T and
Yeah,
Apple?
I think, just working in brand partnerships for all those years, understanding, you know, what it was, what it meant to be an influencer, and influencing those influencers and how that impacts those brands. I think what I learned was how to narrow it down and pour back into said athlete or artist.
Mhm.
Um, you know, one example would be the Trap Music Museum. We that the museum was all a part of a marketing strategy. It was just to promote an album at the time that I was over creative direction for, and to take advantage of the fact that these brands want that visibility from these artists and the people that are in the room,
Mhm.
and pouring those dollars back into a business that can now thrive for 7 years now. You know what I mean? I think we as a community have to understand our greatest commodity is culture, and we give it away for free every day.
Mhm.
So yes, these brands want the visibility, but how do we take those dollars and now leverage it for our own brand, our own
Mhm.
visibility? I think it's starting to happen now, with now the stuff that's happening with the NIL deals with the
Mhm.
college athletes, and a lot more with just people understanding that I can leverage my name, my visibility on uh, different platforms.
Mhm.
One of our good friends, Isaac Hayes the third, who is
Fan
our
base. Mhm.
yeah, he's our lead investor on our crowdfunding platform. So he was the first one to come in and believe in us, and he preaches all the time. We have to own our own infrastructure, and we have to leverage our brand to pay ourselves back because you don't. I mean, people make money from Instagram and
Mhm.
Meta, but how can you redirect those dollars? You know what I mean? How can you show these brands, no, we deserve more? And I
Mhm.
think that's what I learned the most off of, doing all those partnerships.
Mhm. I love that quote that you said, our greatest commodity is our culture, and we do give it away every day. I think we don't really understand the power, of what we do just quite naturally and effortlessly. Um, Speaking of those brand partnerships and athletes and even actors or musicians or any type of influencer, should we be looking for more when you get a deal? Should, from your perspective, should we also be asking, well, if you're going to use my face or my likeness for this, I also want you to be a part of giving back to this, to my community, because I think a lot of times we get in, our goal is just to get the money, right? Get the endorsement, get that, but we don't realize that we actually have the power to impact those coming behind us. So what would be your advice to someone, that a young athlete, that is on the cusp of being able to have some power and may not understand the the true impact that that deal could have for not just him, but for him or her, or for those coming behind them?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. I think one of the issues, it's funny you say that the whole thing, the whole reason why I got into entertainment in the first place was to stop that narrative of athletes coming out of the league being broke.
Mm-hmm.
I had several, high school teammates go to the league, come out, and they didn't have anything to show for it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Millions of dollars squandered. The statistic, it was over 80% at a certain point of
Mm-hmm.
athletes going pro that ended up being broke.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, the whole reason I got involved was to change that narrative, to start educating our athletes, our entertainers on, just financial literacy. And I think we're getting better as a community. But now that we're understanding how to maintain, is now how do we give back? How do we leverage that to continue to teach each generation how to create wealth in our community? I think
Mm-hmm.
that's where we're lacking. And, just looking at the power of negotiation, like you were saying, we should own more. We should have equity in these companies. Fund showed everybody. Now she has a $1 billion valuation on her company. You
Mm-hmm.
know, them being able to leverage that story of their history with Jack Daniels and then taking those dollars into Uncle Nearest and creating an avenue. But I think our community can do that more than just with an alcohol brand or whatever. I feel like we have to be a little bit more creative and dabble into way more industries.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even from the media perspective, from the telecommunication perspective, from everything that we touch, we end up, impacting that infrastructure, but it typically goes back to not us,
No, that's
So
right. Yeah. And I think it's just looking at it from a different perspective. Like, yes, I want those dollars, but I also want to be a part of that and changing it and really opening the doors for others. So we salute you and your business partners on what you all are doing, specifically in telecom, because that's a huge, like, I think a lot of times we're, Nike, yes, we know that we can sell soda, we can sell sneakers, we can sell alcohol, but for us to show up in the telecom space is huge. And so we are really celebrating you all. We want to celebrate Culture Wireless here for during Juneteenth. Any last minute advice you would have for young people, or people out here that are listening to this interview or reading this article and want to know what can they do, to get involved and really like change the trajectory of this narrative, that we see specifically with this new administration, like, that there's so much leaving. What can people do? What are some action items that people can do if they don't have the ability to go and start a culture wireless?
I mean, I think it's all about, tapping into the community, creating impact and, creating collectives. I feel if we band together, we're a lot stronger. I have a bunch of, group of colleagues and peers that we brainstorm. We
Mhm.
come up with solutions. We have to be solution based and we can't be scared of the pivot. I've had, I feel like 20 careers, you know what I mean, in a 20-year span.
Mhm.
But you can't give up and you obviously have to hone in and focus on those needs. Culture Wireless came from a need. We have to now see with the current administration and things that are going on in our community, what is that next need? How can we focus on that and drive all of our dollars towards that mission?
hmm Well, how can people get involved if they want to learn more about Culture Wireless or support you all and what you have going on? How can people learn more about the movement?
Well, you can follow us on social media at Culture Wireless, or you can go to culturewireless.com. We'll be making a lot more announcements. You'll see us.
Go feel us. All right. Well, happy Juneteenth in advance, William. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. And like I said, Lenox and Parker looks forward to supporting and partnering with Culture Wireless in the future. And we wish you and your partners a great week as we celebrate what new announcement you guys have coming forward.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. All right. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that conversation. Most importantly, I hope it will inspire you to go to culturewireless.com, find out more about what they have going on. Remember that tagline, that gem in all the many ones that William just dropped, which is our greatest commodity is our culture. And that's what Lenox and Parker is all about. This has been Christal Jordan, your editor-in-chief of Lenox and Parker, again, wishing you a beautiful, successful, and impactful and empowered Juneteenth. We'll see you right back here, LenoxandParker.com.